lot of value will be shared in our time together. My name is Naftali Hoff, and it's a pleasure to be with you. I'm co-hosting this webinar. This is the first one I'm doing, at least in this series, with somebody else. And so we elected to start with a video just to be able to say hello and kind of introduce ourselves in person. We are going to be cutting out the video shortly so that we could focus on the content. And then at the end, assuming we have time, we'll open it up to Q&A and we'll probably pop the cameras back on. So it's just a quick hello for all of us. I am the president of Impactful Coaching. I help leaders get more done with productivity and whatnot. And as a former school leader, I've been doing quite a bit of instructional work, webinars and whatnot for nonprofits and schools and school leaders. So this is another offering. I'm so glad. If you are a returnee, please just put the word return in the chat. Would love to see all of you who are returning. And if you are new, please write the word new. And remember, when you respond, please respond to all panelists and attendees so we can see your responses. Okay, lots of you are here. Okay, great, great, great. Welcome everybody from Long Island and Yonkers and Rockland County and New Jersey, which is where I am, and so many other places as well. As I scroll. Oh my goodness, oh, I missed all of these new messages here. Okay, returnee, new, lots of new people as well. We welcome you all. We want this to be interactive. We encourage your questions. We encourage your participation. Barry, is there anything that you wanted to say now while the camera is still on before we pivot?
I'll just make a quick intro. Thank you very much, Naftali, for inviting me to join you. I'm excited to present and try to be helpful and resourceful to everybody here. Thank you all for joining. I know everybody's schedules, and some schedules some people's schedules are totally wacko and off the wall, crazy busy, and some people are just absolutely nothing to do. But for both of those categories, I appreciate you.
And everyone in between.
And everyone in between. There might be some of those too, yes. So thank you very much for joining us. I founded the company Supportive HR a couple of years ago to provide HR services for small and medium-sized businesses that don't need a full-time HR director and certainly don't need the expense of a full-time HR director. So I give them a strong infrastructure for those small companies, giving them the framework that they need to get the peace of mind that they want, that the larger companies have. Now the small companies can have that as well. So I'm excited to share some ideas as we head into the new normal, as we're adjusting, and we'll continue to adjust as things are settling. I don't want to say that we're settling into the way things are now, but in certain ways we will be settling into certain things. Obviously, we want certain things to go back to the way they used to be. So I'm excited to have this conversation and present some information that I hope everybody will find useful and helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you, Barry, for that. We're going to get started. I'm going to be cutting out on my video now. Barry's going to be doing the same, and we will continue as such. So as Barry talked about, the new normal, and this is a reality that is still evolving. Nobody really knows what it's going to look like next week, next month, 6 months down the road, but we are already starting to see some trends, and we're going to unpack them. But before we talk about the actionable items, let's also discuss and be mindful of the realities that we have as far as some of the leadership challenges. And parenthetically, I do want to mention that for simplicity in the big picture, Barry and I chose to separate our content, which means to say that I'm going to be sharing content that I prepared. I'm going to then be pivoting or toggling between mine and his. It's not as simple to do so on Zoom. So there will be a moment where I will stop a share and then I will share again. It'll look like new content, at which point I will still be driving those slides forward. So here are the primary challenges as I see them. Number one, the general confusion and uncertainty that we are dealing with. It is real. It is ever present. It is in the news. It is in our personal lives, the economy, our business, our health, our relationships. We are just in a state that we've never encountered before. Yes, we've encountered difficult times, whether regionally like Hurricane Sandy, for example, the New York area, or globally like 9/11. But I think the impact here, not only because of the personal health involved, but also the way that it has transformed everything that we do. Literally, there's not a thing in our day pretty much that is not affected one way or the other by COVID-19/COVID-20 and hopefully stopping there. And so we have to recognize that as leaders, we are dealing with people who are all confused, unsure, uncertain. Will I have a job? What will that look like? What will the industry look like? So many questions. And frankly, we don't necessarily have all of the answers. Another piece is that because we have gone remote, both 2 and 3 are a direct outgrowth of that sense. Number one, communication is not what it was. It's much more virtual in nature. And because of that virtual communication, we therefore are needing to communicate just differently. There are challenges. We don't see each other as much. We can't read body language. We can't connect with people with the nonverbals the way that we typically did. And we can't just see somebody, kind of glance over what are they doing, what are they involved with. Everything requires a formal check-in. Everything requires a different way by which to get that feedback. So that's an important thing to be mindful of. And then the last one is that until, some people are great remotely, some people have it all set up and are kind of like we're raring to go, but lots and lots of people are having a very hard time with productivity. And we have to lead through that. Number one, they're not used to the tools. They're not used to being isolated. They may have kids at home. They may have others in their house. They may have other things going on around their workspace. And frankly, their workspace might be a mess, right? And Barry's going to talk about a lot of those things because we just never thought that we'd be spending all day creating a workspace from home where that wasn't just part of the infrastructure, the layout, and all of these kinds of things. Okay, so to all of those, these are some of our challenges. By the way, Nancy, to answer your question, we are going to make sure that you get our contact information. Do not worry. Thank you for asking. Okay, and I think at this point, I'm going to shift over to Barry and let him share what he sees some of the primary challenges of today to be, and then to talk further about some solutions or some strategies that we could be launching into. Please bear with me for just a moment as I pivot the share. But Barry, if you'd like, you can start talking in the interim.
Okay, thank you, Naftali. Thank you. That was excellent. That was really excellent. As Naftali spoke about, and everybody knows, no one, I don't have to say, there's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of uncertainty, and unfortunately, there's a lot of sadness. It's reached a point that I believe everybody here knows someone, if not several people, that are being affected, in a serious way. And it's really very sad, and it brings, fear and uncertainty in people's personal lives, and of course in their business lives, which really, we're here obviously to talk about business. But it's important as leaders in business to realize that people are multidimensional. So there's a lot, there's a lot of things going on. The hopeful piece, what's nice is that when you look around, there's a lot of hope. We know this will end. People are pulling together. People are helping each other. There have been a lot of offers of support, a lot of very high-end professionals that are offering their services at no charge. People just want to help. At this point, many people are putting the money aside, putting profits aside, and they really just want to help and be a resource for people. And it's really nice, and we should try to grab onto that. And keeping in mind, like I said at the beginning, that there's a lot of personal people being affected and a lot of side stories, besides for the actual, the virus, and people are distracted and people are stressed. There's other side stories. People have, their lives are going on. People that have other diseases still have those diseases. People have family celebrations, whether it's weddings or births of babies. Things are still happening. And obviously they're complicated tremendously given the circumstances, but there's things going on in people's lives, and it's important to keep that in mind as a leader of a company, as a leader of people. As an employer, you are a leader. Your people look at you as their leader. Part of that means keeping in mind that people have their lives going on, just like before this whole thing happened. People had lives outside of work. They still have lives outside of work. So it's an important thing to keep in mind. So that's just sort of by way of a little bit of an intro, a little bit of perspective. So I'll just talk for a moment about this. I'll give a little introduction as to leadership. Naftali is really the leadership guru, and I think he'll explain and expand on a lot of these items. But just what is leadership in a time of crisis? Everybody craves a strong leader. Everybody looks for leadership when there's a crisis. And in times of crisis, that's when leaders really define themselves, and that's when it's emphasized what a person's leadership styles are. You know, we look around us in the news, we see all different leadership styles among different leaders, and it's really a defining moment. So just a few key things, a few key ideas of how a leader, what's important in a strong leader: communication. You have to have strong communication, clear communication. You got to make decisions. Sometimes you don't have as much information as you wish you had, but you have to make decisions anyway. Sometimes you can push off certain decisions, but you need to communicate. You need to keep your people in the loop. You want to be able to communicate clearly and honestly. Transparency. Don't mess around. Don't be foggy. Obviously, everybody knows there's a lot of uncertainty, but try to communicate with your team on a consistent basis. Tell them where things are up to. Tell them, you know, there's a lot of laws coming out and we're trying to get clarity on it. We're on top of it. Don't just leave them in the dark because you don't have a clear answer on a way forward yet. Tell them we're working on it. We're evaluating our options. We're speaking with different experts. I don't think anyone expects you to have the answers in 5 minutes. So just the key is to have strong communication, honest communication, be compassionate, like we talked about. People have things going on in their lives. They realize that you're running a business. They realize there are challenges, but be compassionate to their, you know, to what's going on in their life as well. So those are just things, a little bit of an outline. I know Naftali is going to expand on these and probably add a lot more. So I'm not going to belabor these points too much. But I think
Barry,
it's important. Yes,
Barry, may
please.
I add one quick thing now before
Please.
we continue? Okay, this was a fantastic slide and really a great introduction. But you mentioned something at the beginning that frankly, I think you kind of like created a little bit of a, I wouldn't say paradigm shift for me, but you know, reinforced a perspective that I think just deserves to be restated here before we move on. This idea that you talked about, in many ways, that leadership is defined through crisis. Leadership is defined through challenging times. Like, for example, regardless of his current role politically and regardless of anything that he's done since 9/11, I think everybody will have, anyone who certainly was looking at New York City in particular at the time, will have a perspective of Rudy Giuliani as a powerful, strong leader during a time of crisis. And Governor Pataki, and now currently Governor Cuomo, and many other leaders who have stepped up, obviously in a political sense, because there was a crisis and they rose to the occasion or are rising to the occasion. And of course, when leaders don't rise to the occasion, we take notice of that as well. And so not only is it imperative for us to really be great leaders for our people right now, because that's what they need to move forward, to be comfortable, to be confident, do their work with engagement and all of that, but we also want to be thinking about how will our leadership be framed in the future. And a lot of it, really take this as an opportunity to look at your leadership and say, what can I be giving to my people that not only will help me and them now, but will help all of us in the future, because it's going to cement a relationship that was already solid, hopefully, but it's going to really deepen it further, because at the end of the day, I know you had my back at a time of crisis, and I am eternally indebted to you for doing that and for being there. And I want to continue to give to you, maybe even endlessly, as a result of how you led me and kind of guided our team during these most difficult times. Back to you, Barry.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Yes, no, thank you, Naftali. I appreciate you adding that. It is absolutely crucial, and like you said, we hope that the leaders have already developed, and I'm sure that everyone on this call already has strong relationships with their teams. And the way, you know, just sort of one more step to think about is, as much as leaders need to make very difficult decisions these days, and sometimes there's just no money to keep paying people, even with the government programs and you know, the tax credits that are going to come. You know, it's very complicated, and many companies will be forced to lay off people, hopefully only temporarily. And there is a feeling, and it should be something that employers keep in mind, that, you know, the way those decisions are made and the way they're communicated especially can go a long way in your future relationship with those people. You know, when these things, you know, when things settle down and companies are up and running, all these people that have laid off, yeah, you figure most of them will go back to their original jobs, assuming those companies are continuing to function. However, if the boss was less than compassionate or less than understanding when they made their decisions or communicated those decisions, and now they're ready to get up and running, and they call back this employee, this former employee, and say, okay, we're ready to start running next week, can you come back? That employee may say, well, you know what, you threw me out with the garbage when these things started, maybe I'll get a better job somewhere else. Whereas if you did it with compassion, with understanding, with strong communication, that may be easier to hold on to those people and keep that strong relationship going. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. Let's talk about moving on to some of the technical things that people are dealing with now. People are working from home. Very few people are going into work at this point, and those companies that are able to continue to function remotely, those are the companies that are going to at least have a chance to thrive through this. So I just wanted to share some ideas of how to make the work from home system, how to make it work for you, for your company, and for your people. And something to keep in mind is that I do believe there will be a paradigm shift going forward with how companies operate. I think now that companies have been forced into this situation, a lot of companies will see that they can actually make it work. Not only can they make it work, but they can actually make it be even better than they had things before. If people no longer have to commute to the office, they save a lot of time, especially once the kids are back in school, which we hope will happen sooner rather than later. Then people will be that much easier for people to work from home. Excuse me. Companies can save on office rent. People can save on office supplies, which is not to say necessarily the paper clips and the staples, because anything that's directly related to work, the company should be paying for. But the company no longer needs to provide coffee. The company will no longer need to provide toilet paper, which is obviously in high demand these days. So there are a lot of expenses that can be cut by having people work from home. So I do believe that companies that were forced into this situation now, many of them will continue, if not 100%, but at least really continue to adopt it, at least on a partial basis going forward. So a few things to keep in mind. It's important to have a proper setup. Ideally, if someone can have a private office in their house that's totally devoted to work, that's obviously ideal. And in that office, they need to have the right hardware, the right software, the right internet speed, whatever bandwidth they need, and security. Security is a big one. You don't want people having your company information or client information on their personal computers where their kids or spouse can access it and start forward things and copying and pasting things around, or something else. So security is a big issue. So it's important for companies, and this the companies should be providing. They should provide the hardware, they should provide the software, they should not be relying on what they call BYOD, bring your own device. The companies should be supplying their employees with a dedicated computer, dedicated systems, so that everything that belongs to the company, informational wise, should be housed on a company computer, not on the employee's personal computer. And obviously a phone as well. They should have a company phone. They shouldn't have to be using their own phone. This way they can put it away at the end of the workday. You want to keep that in mind. So the company really does need to provide as much of a setup as possible for their employees. Obviously, the company is not going to build a private office as an extension on someone's home for their employee. I don't assume that would happen. But as much as possible, the company should certainly be supplying whatever computer systems, and if they need to increase the person's internet bandwidth, that the company should be providing that as well. Those are the kinds of things some of the kinds of things companies should be thinking about. I would move on to the next slide, Naftali, please. Just to talk about some ground rules that are important to set up when you have people working from home. Some of these, you may chuckle, they get dressed. I saw a headline the other day, excuse me, that Walmart is seeing an uptick in sales of tops and a downturn in sales of bottoms, right? We all know as long as from the waist up, you look professional, then that works on Zoom, and I get it. However, I would stress that it's important for people to get fully dressed in their fully professional clothing. It's not ideal to sit in your pajamas all day. You don't have that feeling of I am now at the office, I am now working, I'm now devoting myself to my company that's giving me a paycheck. So you owe it both to yourself, and I think this is something that a company should strongly request of their employees. I wouldn't say demand, because it's not something that can be enforced, or would be very difficult to enforce. But it's important to stress, to put this out as a ground rule that we expect our employees, when they're working from home, to be dressed as if they're coming into the work. Shave, do your makeup, whatever you do on a regular morning to go to work, do that at home too. Don't just show up in your pajamas with your hair all over the place and here I am. There are going to be video chats. That's one reason that, of course, the person wants to look professional. But in general, the person, when they feel professional, when they look professional, they will act professional, and they will give the company what the company wants from them. It's important to have some kind of a comfortable and professional area to do their work. Like I said on the previous slide, ideally, if someone can have a private office, that's great. A lot of people don't have that option, but at least the most comfortable and professional area possible, even if it's a dedicated folding table in the basement. As funny as that may sound, it's a dedicated folding table. It's just for work with a comfortable chair. They know this is where I do my work. I'd like to ask, before we keep going further, I'm actually going to ask if people don't mind in the chat. I'm just curious, how many people here had a work from home set up previously, either for themselves or for their company? Was there a regular work from home option, whether it was on a regular schedule, not necessarily full time? I'm just curious, did you already have a work from home system going on in your company? If you had it at all, I'd just love to hear. If it was once a week or full time, I don't need to know all the details. I'm curious. Okay, so I have a couple of each. So some people had, some people didn't. Okay, excellent. So we have a handful of people that were working from home previously, or at least had the option, and many people that did not. Yeah, there are definitely people that are working from home nowadays that were never working from home before. And there are some people that have always been working from home. So I'm sure some of this is not news, especially to those of you that have been doing this before. Getting dressed, doing the regular routine, important now, not so much before. Yep, I get it. Yeah, it's important to keep that routine, keep life going as normal as possible. Yeah, just started working from home. Yeah, a lot of people have just started working from home. A lot of people have been doing it before. So just some ground rules that I think are helpful for ourselves and for our teams if we are leaders, to try to set out these ground rules. Normal work hours as much as possible. There are different reasons for that. You don't want people just, I'll roll out of bed at 11 in the morning and I'll do some work and then I don't know, do some gardening. There's not really not much else to do. You can't go to the gym. But it's important for people to try to keep normal work hours as much as possible, because you need to collaborate with coworkers, or if it's being in touch with clients, you need to be able to be working during regular business hours. Now, that being said, people are being pulled in different directions. If they have kids at home and their kids need to be doing their schoolwork and they have particular times where they need to be logged in, the parents may be distracted with that and helping their children because the kids are not in school all day like they used to be. So some companies are being flexible with their employees for that, and that's great. I know of a company that said, we used to expect, whatever the number of hours were per week, we're cutting that by 75% because we realized that you don't have as much time. And then of that 75%, we would like 60% of that work to be done between 8:30 and 5 o'clock. You want to do the rest of it from 10 o'clock at night to 1 o'clock in the morning, that's fine, but we need you for at least a chunk of time during regular business hours. So you come up with whatever works for your company, but it's important for most companies to have their people working as much as possible during regular work hours. And also, it's very easy to get pulled away while we're home, and there's that closet I've been, waiting to clean out for years, and now I have an opportunity. And of course, there's always laundry to do and the dishes, and there are plenty of chores to do around the house. It's very easy to be distracted because we're home now. We didn't used to be home during the day. So it's important to schedule your breaks. You want to work for 2 hours in the morning from 9 to 11, and then maybe throw in a load of laundry, maybe do another quick chore for 15 minutes, and then by 11:20, by 11:30, I'm back at the desk. Make a schedule, set a timer so you know when you're able to check the news. People are on the news all day long. I mean, I don't think that's a healthy thing. I think it's better to check the news less often, especially nowadays. Just my own opinion. But set a schedule, because it's very easy to get sucked into the news and into the WhatsApp updates and all the different things that are going on. So set a timer. No, right now I have 2 hours, I'm working. Turn off the alerts, the notifications on your phone. You'll see them later. Nothing's happening that's that much of an emergency that it can't wait for you to finish your 2-hour block of time. And after that 2 hours, we'll throw in a load of laundry. Maybe I'll wash a few dishes, take care of something else, and then by 20 minutes later, I'm back to work. Set a schedule, set a timer. I think it's important. Move along, if we could, Naftali, please. I'll take a look at the next slide. This is an important thing to keep in mind. There is a shift, and I think it's a good shift for companies to keep in mind, companies that historically have really evaluated employees by when they show up to work and when they leave. If you came in at 9 o'clock every day and you stayed till 5 every day, we loved you. If you came in at 9:05, you got it over the head. I think we all know of companies that do that. It's still important and it's required for many positions to track employees' time. That does not change even when people are working from home. You have to, people should be tracking their time. But at the same time, companies, even more now than before, need to be shifting their focus on production and less on the time spent. So if someone clocked in at 9:05 instead of 9 o'clock, I think that really should not be such a big deal in most situations. And in some, it might be a big deal, excuse me. But in many situations, it's not. And it's important for companies to focus more on the production that's happening and less on the time that's being spent. And part of that, we'll talk about the SMART goals. We'll introduce the concept of SMART goals for a moment. I'll send things back over to Naftali, and then maybe we'll expand on it more later on in the presentation.
Barry, if I may,
Yes,
before you
please.
continue, just
Yes.
wanted to let everybody know that that crying you heard in the back, Barry, as we say in the Jewish nation, gets a mazel tov. He is the proud father of it was a baby boy, correct?
Yes, thank you very much, Naftali.
Yes. So that is the joy in the background there. And even though Barry is offering tremendous value, I hope you're all picking up on some of these fantastic ideas and very important pieces. He is also doing what many of us need to do, which is balancing work and life, and doing so with a bar mitzvah as well. It was just a very happening time with the Ackermans, and I'm grateful beyond that Barry is here on the call, adding so much wisdom, guidance, experience, and practical know-how. So Barry, back to you for just another moment, finish up, and then I will take over.
Sure, thank you very much for that, Naftali. I appreciate that, and I apologize for the background music. Yes, thank God we were able to make a Zoom bar mitzvah a few days ago, and I will be making a Zoom bris, God willing, on Monday. So yeah, getting to know Zoom very well in a lot of ways that most other people never had the opportunity to use Zoom. But yeah, that's part of the side story that I mentioned at the beginning. Everyone has other things going on. Kids are still growing up, kids are still being born. So it's important to get that all in mind. And thank you very much for all the well wishes and congratulations in the chat site. I'm very touched. I appreciate that. But yeah, so SMART goals. So it's important for people to have goals, for the employees, for the employers to set goals for their teams. And SMART goals is something that I'm sure many of you have heard of. And just to run through them quickly, SMART is an acronym, S.M.A.R.T. That's why they're all capitalized. Maybe we'll just go to the next slide for a moment, and you can see what they stand for. We'll talk about it for a minute. So you want them to be specific. The goal needs to be specific. They need to have a specific goal that they're trying to get to. And it needs to be measurable. As much as possible, give it a number, give it a quantity that at that point the goal is considered met, or it's considered 100% or 80% or 90%. We have a measurable goal. It has to be attainable. We don't just say, get to the moon. How's the person going to get to the moon? It has to be something that they can possibly do. Relevant. It has to make sense based on what the person's position is, based on what the company's mission statement and goals, the general goals of the company, the employee's goals should fit into all that. It should be relevant to what we're trying to accomplish. And then, of course, it has to be time bound, because you don't want to give them 20 years to hit this goal. You want them to hit this goal in a week, in 2 weeks, in a month, in 3 months, whether it's a quarterly goal, an annual goal. You got to give some kind of a time limit on there. So just a quick example on the next slide. and I'll do this quickly and I'll send it back to Naftali. So produce more. It's a nice goal. We want all of our employees and we want ourselves to produce more. Okay, but is that specific? No. Is it measurable? No. I don't know what does more mean? How much is more? Is it attainable? I'm not sure if it's attainable because I don't know what you mean by more. Is it relevant? I have no idea. Is it time bound? No, it doesn't say produce more by next week, by next month, by the next 30 years. I have no idea. Whereas the next one is a very small goal, but I think it addresses all of the points. Complete 12 client proposals by the end of the week. So is it specific? Yes, because it says what's expected. 12 proposals, it's specific. Is it measurable? Yeah, it says 12. So if the person did 10, so he got most of the way there. If he did 12, he hit the goal. It's very measurable, there's a number. Is it attainable? Let's hope it is. I don't know the exact details of this company, but if that's attainable, then yes. If that's totally unreasonable based on how long a client proposal takes, then maybe it's not. Is it relevant? Well, let's assume that that's this person's position, is to be writing proposals, and that's part of how the company operates. And is it time bound? Yes, because we wrote there by the end of the week. We didn't just tell them do 12 client proposals and then after 3 years, well, I'm still working on those proposals. No, I want you to do them by the end of the week. So we hit all five bases. It's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, relevant, and time bound. I just see that question in the chat. It's a great question. Maybe I'll pass that over. I'm going to hold off on that one. Maybe Naftali, I'm going to hand things over to you. I'm not sure if you want to address that question now or maybe come back to it. That's
Sure.
a tough one. Obviously, goals have changed now for a lot of companies because everything is upside down. I'm not sure if there's one blanket answer for that of how to adjust goals. I think it's a process. It's hard to answer just like that, with a question. It's a very good question because one of the things that has been turned upside down is the goals. Companies that have been setting goals will have to adjust those goals if they haven't already. Naftali, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, otherwise I'll just send it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Barry. And yes, I would say a similar approach, Maria, regarding your goals. There are going to be adjustments required. I think everybody recognizes that. And so it's just a matter at this point of figuring out, do you have enough information in order to be able to make meaningful adjustments to your goals, or do you need to kind of stay in the treading water stance that many of us are in presently until things have been restored to some degree of normalcy, at which point you can adjust your goals. And it might just be that you cut out 20% of the overall goal based on the projected decrease in productivity. It could be you look at other metrics. I would make that adjustment with the team the same way you probably created it with the team to begin with. And this way you have everybody's participation and involvement. And that will hopefully motivate them. You talk about the issue of motivation. It's a real issue. And I think that we do want to keep our people motivated as motivated as possible. So I'm going to pivot the slide. One of the things I will add to the SMART goal concept that Barry was talking about is that we do want to make sure that we do want to make sure that our goals are process oriented rather than outcome oriented. So for example, in Barry's case, it was process specific, talking about completing proposals, but something along the lines of losing weight or I don't know, whatever it might be that's really an outcome. Those are goals we want to avoid creating, not because we don't want to achieve them, but because they're impossible to control and difficult to measure. So instead, we want to talk about the actions that will lead to the goals that we desire. So I hope that was clear. And we are trying to, I don't know that we'll make it time-wise. We're hopeful to be able to offer a little bit of Q&A on the back end, as we mentioned before. So if that is possible, we will do it. If you have questions, you could certainly include them now, but definitely you want to jot them down so that if we can move to that Q&A piece, we will gladly do so and answer as many questions as we can in the time that we have. Okay, so because we had these challenges over here, let's review them quickly. Confusion and uncertainty, gaps with communication, as well as decrease in productivity. We want to explore the leader's responsibilities of addressing them. Number one, providing strong leadership. Number two, communicating effectively, even more so perhaps than in the past. keeping in mind the fact that communication does look different, as we've already discussed, as well as increasing productivity. So we're going to try to hit on all of those in a relatively short time frame. So I'm not going to go overly deep on anything specific, but I certainly will invite you to ask questions as well as to comment as appropriate. So when we talk about strong leadership, excuse me, I actually wanted to mention how wonderful it is for those of you who have been returnees, and I've been talking the entire 60 minutes, to have such a lengthy break. So Barry, that was great. Thank you for saving my voice here a little bit, but also giving me the opportunity to focus more intently on specific things. So number one, we're all afraid, and we have to be able to control our fear, and yet number two, at the same time, be vulnerable. So it's an interesting kind of tightrope that we are walking here. We want to be strong. We want to demonstrate that we are leading in these difficult times, and at the same time we're vulnerable. At the same time, we're human. We run the same health risks that other people have. We have many of the same fears, and we need to think, how are we communicating that in a way that people see the human side but feel secure that their leader knows what they're doing and is providing the proper and consistent guidance necessary to keep the ship moving in the right direction. And a lot of that emerges, again, moving quickly through this, to number three, the idea that I'm going to prioritize others, I'm going to put their well-being first, and I'm going to try to manage people's stress. I do that through communication. I do that by considering their new work environment and the challenges that they're facing. Barry did a great job of unpacking a lot of that already. I think a lot of people feel stressed, and we talked about this in a separate webinar about stress, when their perception of what they can do is exceeded by their perception of what is being asked of them. So if something is being asked of me that I feel goes beyond my capacity to do it, which is different, by the way, than a challenge. A challenge means I can do it, I just have to push myself to get there. So for example, I can do 10 push-ups, I'm going to challenge myself to do 11. It's within my range of capability. But if you tell me now I got to do 50 after just working so hard to get to 10, that's going to stress me out, because I don't see that as being possible, certainly not immediately, maybe incrementally over a long time, but I don't know if I'm going to be given that time to reach that level of strength and or mastery. So managing stress is a critical piece. And for those of you, I did not include it and I feel bad, but actually, maybe it is on the back end of this PowerPoint. I don't even remember, I've made so many. But if you do go to my website, impactfulcoaching.com, you can find a lot of free resources. And one of them, which was recently uploaded, is a free ebook on managing stress. So if you go to impactfulcoaching.com/home, and then you hover over the top there and you find the tab that says books, you will find the opportunity to click on the stress management ebook, which I think would be a very valuable resource for you to get your hands on for personal stress management as well as team stress management, because leaders can stress too. In fact, most leaders report an uptick of stress once they become leaders. It's human nature. It's part of the responsibility. It's one of the reasons leaders get paid more and get the benefits, because they take on more in doing what they do. And the buck ultimately does stop with them. Number four, while you're fearful, you have to control that. You also have to be optimistic. And sometimes you got to fake it until you make it. I've got this little booklet on my desk that my daughter gave to me. It was a Hanukkah gift, and it was one of the best ones, even though it cost almost nothing. And it says, start every day with a huge smile. Think about what you have to be thankful for. Bring gratitude into your life, not just life events like Barry was talking about. Those are great, but also just day to day. I have my health. I have my job. I have my opportunity to engage. I have my opportunity to make a difference. I'm learning new skills. Whatever it is that you are doing, that's going to, that can give you a boost, give you sort of a sense that things are going to get better. You're growing, the economy is going to rebound. We've gotten through worse in a sense economically. The health situation is going to improve. Be optimistic. Think of the good things that are coming just around the corner if you hang in there. Build trust. I'd love to unpack trust in greater detail. I'll just quickly mention the model: A, B, C, D, able, believable, connected, dependable. Thank you, Deborah, for putting that in. It's impactfulcoaching.com/. It might even be stress ebook. I'm not sure. You can play with that a little bit, but if you go to the website and you click through the landing page, you will get to the homepage, and it's all there on the top. There's productivity resources, podcast, blog, you name it, it's there. Okay, back to this. So building trust. So able means you have the ability to do the work. Believable, right? This is really important, especially in today's day and age where we can't see each other. Can I believe the person who is speaking to me and communicating that information? Connected. Do I feel that this person has empathy and is empathic and is connected and wants me to be successful? We as leaders need to push ourselves, especially if you are like me and you are, I'll just use a color from the true colors concept, which is I'm a green, which means I love to jump right in and get the work done and solve problems. I cut through a lot of the fuzzy, touchy-feely people stuff. It's just the way that I roll. Some people are blues and they're very empathic. Some people are others. But you have to work to build more of that in this environment, because not only are people fearful, but they are distant. And when we are removed from people, that's when our imagination kicks in, and it usually isn't working with us. It's usually working against us. It's creating the worst possible case scenarios. And what are people thinking when I'm not there? And are people still trusting me? And all these kinds of things. So these are important, Danielle, really, really helpful. I appreciate it. Everybody just click on it now so you get it, because it's going to disappear from the chat at some point. And then finally, encourage people, share quotes, share inspiring pictures, share inspiring videos. Maybe you can go ahead and just create a small video and share it with your team or with individuals. All of those things will help. So that's on providing strong leadership. Let's move into the second one, which is to communicate effectively. And we do so in these 5 areas, not all starting with C or P, okay? Be consistent, right? Communicate at the same time each day or each week. Communicate in a similar kind of way so that people feel that you are, they know what's coming, and they have a sense of how to read what you're sharing. Be as clear as you possibly can be, and check for understanding. There are a number of educators on this call, but everybody knows this idea, right? You want to confirm, did you understand it the way I intended it? What were your takeaways? Give clear examples of what you want and clear examples of what you don't want. The more that you create vivid imagery of the right thing, the better the outcome is going to be. It's like a rubric you give to a student. It's like a picture or a model you give to a professional, an image of a completed project. All of these things will help ensure that people are clear. When we're clear, we're motivated, we're more productive, we get things done, right? Be proactive. Don't wait for problems to occur. Let people know from the beginning, I'm going to reach out to you. We're going to talk on a regular basis. We're going to check in. It's not just to catch you doing something wrong. Ken Blanchard calls this leave alone, leave alone, leave alone, zap. It's right. I leave you alone because nothing's really a problem. And it kind of like just do our thing. And then all of a sudden there's an issue, or it's kind of building in my mind, but I just don't want to say anything because I don't want to be that person. And then boom, I hit you with all the feedback and I hit it to you all at one time. That is not effective communication. Proactive is the way to go, and positive. Begin not just the sandwich idea of starting and ending with positive, but try to ensure that what you're doing is constructive in nature, that you're giving somebody something to work with rather than to just feel bad about. And then last one is collaborative. Bring the team together. Give everybody an opportunity to talk. Share personal things as well as professional. So start that way. How are things going at home? How are things with the kids? What are your challenges right now? What are some neat things that you're up to that you're learning that you typically don't have a chance to do? What's a new hobby you're taking up? What's something you're watching? My wife tells me that on her team, she works remotely all the time, but a lot of her team is on site. And regardless, they're now talking because largely they don't have as much work to do, but they're also talking about what they're watching on Netflix, and they're talking about what they're doing in other places, because they're creating connection and creating collaboration, and regular meetings and regular conversation will foster that sense of team and will allow people to do their very best work. So ask yourself, am I communicating as well as possible? And if not, review this checklist, other checklists, and see if you can maybe even Do some surveys with people that you trust and ask them, what can I be doing even better to get my message across clearly, to communicate my connection, my desire to support, all of those kinds of things. Okay. Okay. So maybe there's an issue. Constance, I'm going to have to take a look at the website. Maybe when Barry takes over the mic again, I will quickly check the link and see if everything is working. Let's move on to the next one, productivity. So Barry went deep on this, so I'm going to only just mention these quickly. Most of these are self-explanatory. Barry talked about removing distractors, shutting down your phone, subtly, by the way, psychologically, even if your phone is there and faced down, or even if the do not disturb feature is engaged, you will still think of your phone more. But if you physically remove it from the space and you're willing to block out time, which is number 2, schedule your tasks and block them into your calendar. And that should be your only focus for that period of time, preferably 90 minutes for bigger tasks, usually 30 to 60 for shorter tasks, depending on what it is that you're doing. Schedule them, get them done. The same way you schedule to be here on this call, hopefully you're not all doing 1,000 other things, although we don't know that, right? But if you're really committed to this learning and you're really committed to your job, whatever that is, you're going to block the time and remove the distractions. Letting other people know what you're working on is a great thing because, of course, it engages everybody and gets them motivated as well, but it also keeps you accountable. If I tell people I'm doing it, they're going to want to know where it is and when it's going to be done. And if I'm just loafing, it's not going to happen. So informing people, it's like an accountability partner, creates responsibility and it motivates me to be productive. Go all in on tasks, right? Don't try to multitask and do multiple things at once. Research is very clear that the outcome is not nearly as good as if you're all in and fully focused. If you have some small tasks, you just do them right away. It's part of the do, defer, delegate, delete, Eisenhower matrix model that we've talked about. This is the do. Short tasks, just get it done, get it out of the way so you can focus on the big things. Try to maintain high energy levels through exercise, through healthy eating, through short but consistent and properly timed breaks, through fresh air, through sunshine, through something positive, positive thoughts, meditation, prayer. All of these will keep you motivated, keep your energy levels high, and help you do your very best work. And when you as the leader are sharing these tips with others, you are educating them, you're getting them to perform, and you're making them feel, wow, this leader really cares about me, because they're not just saying, do your work and good luck. It's do your work and let me show you how. Let me give you the tools you need to be successful. And finally, like I said, similar to the same point as the last one, provide learning opportunities. So if there's something about how to work remotely, or if it's something more specific and technical specific to the work, either way, if you as the leader give people the learning opportunities, they will, in most cases, be more productive and feel appreciative, that you're really providing them with all these tools and resources. So a quick review before we wrap up at least this part of the presentation. On my end, you want to make sure that you're providing strong leadership. You can be vulnerable, but you got to be strong, and you got to let everybody know that you're going to be there for them and provide the guidance necessary to get through this. Optimistic, inspirational. Number 2, communicate effectively, early and often and clear and consistent and upbeat. All of these things contribute. And then finally, all the productivity pieces we just talked about to make sure that you're using your time effectively. You're bringing your very best self to the project. You're not letting all the gadgets and things distract you. But when you sit down to work, you are really committed to working. So at this point, I'm going to ask if Barry wanted to add anything additional on his end, or if you want to get back to that PowerPoint before we pivot into the Q&A that we had talked about before.
Thank you very much, Naftali. I'm not going to take too much more time. I feel like I took too much already, and I feel bad, Naftali, because I know you have a wealth of value that you love to add, and people love to hear from you. So I apologize if I took too much time. I would just throw in, I had a slide about it, but I don't know necessary. It's not necessary to jump back to it. And I saw some people talking in the chat. It's important to maintain the feeling of team. You know, as everyone is working in their own private homes, The feeling of camaraderie that used to exist in the office is much, much harder to hold on to, as everyone is miles away from each other, not physically seeing each other. It's important to have video meetings as much as you can. And even if I think I saw them talking about just to get on, even for a lunch meeting, you know, you can eat lunch together over the phone. It may sound a little bit silly, but I'll tell you that, you know, my kids had a pizza party with their grandparents over Zoom last week. You know, we had pizza at our table and they had pizza at their table, and then several miles away, and we turned on the computer and, you know, we had a pizza party together with the grandparents. So that's important to do that in the workplace as well. You know, just have lunch together over Zoom, just to catch up with each other the same way you would in the office. And, you know, I think a lot of us know about all the tools that are out there now. There's Slack, there's WhatsApp, you know, there's a million of them. So it's important, you know, to be smart, you know, to make sure that your team has the tools necessary to be able to stay in touch, to be able to maintain that feeling of team. It's very, very important.
Okay, fantastic. So what I'm going to do now, I think I already did, although I'm going to start my video, and I'm going to invite Barry for you to do the same if you are able. And
Says the host has stopped it again.
Oh no, the host.
That host again.
That host. I'm going to try to get it back on. Let's see. It doesn't seem to let me, other than making you the host. I'm not really sure how else to do it.
But I was the host before.
I know. I took it back.
Oh.
Sorry, but I wanted to make sure that that I could actually get my camera up and running. Do you see me?
I see you. Yes.
Okay, so I have to figure out how to let you be seen as well. And I'm not sure. I'm going to give you make you the host, I guess, because that's the only thing it seems to let me do here, to give you a chance to do that. So that may mean that I'm no longer visible. I'm not sure.
No, you're still there.
Yep,
now you're still there. And
all right. Can you all see both of us, members of Chat Nation? You're able to see? Okay, great.
Are you there?
First of all, before you ask any questions, what would you say was can you please list your single biggest takeaway from this presentation? Okay, you see us one at a time. Okay, I'm sorry about that, but better than nothing. See if you can tell me what it is that your biggest takeaway was, whether something Barry said, something I said, something that we both said. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is we want to hear what you have learned, and then we'll talk about what questions you might still have. If you have to leave, we totally understand. If you're able to stick around for a few minutes, Barry, are you able to hang around for a few minutes?
Yeah, I have time.
Okay, so we have a few minutes as well. Communication pointers, great. Okay, thank you for getting us started, Shalom. Keeping in contact with your team, excellent. Thank you, Judith.
SMART goals, it's always a biggie.
Mm-hmm. Normalizing routines, rituals. This is what happens. They start to flow like water. By the way, some of you are only replying to the panelists. You want to reply to panelists and attendees. Fix or adjust your response in the chat accordingly. Okay, regular morning routine, regular communication, vivid imagery of the right thing, ABCD. Wow, this is exciting. See what happens when great people come together to learn and to share. I'm really, really happy that you are all gaining from this. And of course, we certainly would like for you to stay in touch with us as well, because that's where, in many cases, the deepest learning occurs. So Barry, if you could actually type your email into the chat.
Sure.
I'm going to do the same for me. Many of you have mine already, I believe. I'm just nh@impactfulcoaching.com, but I'm going to put that in there, and Barry's going to have his as well. He already got it in. He's faster than me, and I just do a lot of typos. So that's what happens when I'm low on coffee. But there's my email as well, and you guys can certainly be in touch with either or both of us if we can be helpful. Thank you for adding your website as well there, Barry. Okay, any questions in particular? And if you have a particular person you want to address those questions to based on what was shared, just put their name first. So if it's me, you could put an N. If it's Barry, because I don't expect you to spell it properly. But if it's Barry, you can put Barry's name. Okay, Barry, do it again.
You can put a B. I know the B will stand for me. That's all right.
Yeah, okay.
Don't see
thank you for
Barry's
sharing
contact.
all that. Barry, put your email in there again.
I'll put it there again. Yeah, no worries.
And by the way, it's also in the webinar registration, I think. You can find his website, I think. So
think
yeah,
so.
there it is.
I'm on LinkedIn all over the place. There's only one Barry Ackerman that does HR on LinkedIn, so you can find me there
Okay,
too.
for those of you who need the webinar for yesterday, it should be coming out within the hour or so. Usually it's 24 hours after the recording. So thank you for asking, Christina. It is coming.
Oh, wait
Any
a second.
actual questions about today's session that you would like, besides for our contact information, that you would like to see addressed? Again, if you want it addressed by anyone in particular, put that person's initial or name first. Remember, we covered a bunch of things: leadership, new realities, trying to lead in the new normal, exist in the new normal, define the new normal, and try to be professional, like Barry talked about, in all settings, both as the leader as well as the team members. And of course, from the leadership standpoint, to make sure that you're guiding your team as effectively as you can, and let everybody know that it's new for you as much as it's new for them. And you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay, so long as ultimately it's done with the right spirit, and ultimately you're going to learn from it so you can become a better leading moving forward. Okay, Barry, I'm not sure where, Babette, I'm not sure where specifically the question is going here in terms of leading the self-employed sales team. I think that, if you would identify what specifically the challenges that you are encountering, that may give us a better sense of how to respond.
Yeah,
And by the
I'm
way,
not sure if she's addressing sales goals, setting goals. I'm not sure what
okay,
what
so let's
they're
see.
more.
Managing staff who are working from home with young children. Oh, actually, I have a post on that. You should check out my blog. I've got a post on being productive with everybody at home. It just launched in a couple of different places. So definitely check out on my website. I have some information about that there. Let's take a look here. Teachers accountable without having the field micromanage. Okay, so coming back to it, Daisy, I'll mention something that maybe Barry wants to respond. I think if you set goals and you tell people that you're going to be checking in with them on a regular basis, how are they doing towards those goals, what's working, what isn't, try to be as encouraging and as positive as you can, but at the same time creating certain objective metrics that everybody's expected to live up to. And if they don't, the question is, how can I support you to make sure that you can moving forward, right? That's the ideal. Obviously, if someone's really, really struggling, that may require a deeper conversation, but in most cases, people just need the understanding and the support, and they'll get back on track. Barry, anything to add there?
Yeah, not really. I would agree. I think it's important, be in touch, strong communication, clear goals, like you said.
Okay, no, Babette, I see the follow-up here about encouragement as clients drop off. Yeah, I mean, that's an important piece. We have to encourage everybody, let them know that we view this as temporary. The expectation between just general pent-up demand as well as governmental support and intervention is that the economy will start to rebound. The question is when, not if, and that people are just going to have to maybe think differently about how they engage with potential clients or potential buyers in their sales conversation, maybe express more empathy, maybe find ways to increase the value of your offer so that people are willing to buy at a different price point, or they're at the same price point, but they feel they're getting more. Because right now people are holding on to their money. They don't know what's going to happen next. They want to preserve what they have. So they want to stay liquid and very cash intensive if they can, if they're even in position to do that. So if you want them to give away or separate from that hard-earned money, you have to give them a real reason to do so that's justifiable and makes sense for their business and their growth.
Yeah, and I think Lauren's question about how to keep office hours now that the office hours are all over the place. I think you can still maintain office hours. I think you can say I'm available. They can email you. I don't know how they usually get in touch with you, but they can email you at any time that they feel like, and you will respond. If you can give them times when you're available by phone, then great. But it certainly does not have to be all day. You can say, from 4:30 to 5:30 is best for me. I think that's reasonable. Obviously, you'll check with your supervisors of what their expectations are as far as your availability for communication. But I certainly do not think you should have, as you wrote, full access and constant communication. I don't think that's a reasonable expectation.
I would agree with that. I just wanted to float this up on the screen for a moment as we're kind of wrapping this up. 3 other leadership concepts from Patrick, forgetting how to pronounce his last name now, but he's good. He's the president of the table group. It's not Lencioni. It's Lenconi, maybe. I forget. But either way, I've read some of his books, including Five Dysfunctions of a Team, and the idea of being human, being persistent, and being creative, and how we try to solve problems and connect with our people. I'm going to wrap up with this slide for a moment, and then I'm going to try to toggle it back to Barry's so that you can see how to stay in touch with him as well. I do have more webinars Monday and Tuesday after that. No promises because Passover is coming, and I probably will be excommunicated from my own home if I try anything later in the week. That actually would be bad. So Monday and Tuesday, definitely check out on my website. I also have another one this afternoon
Whoa,
on
no rest for the weary.
on change management. So tons of stuff. Check out my website, check out the emails that I've been sending, and I hope that you will join me. And let's see if we can quickly get back to Barry's presentation so that you can find his content as well. There's so many windows open. That's a mistake on my part. Bear with me for a moment, everybody, as I find it. It's this one, okay? And let's get to the final slide here so that you could check out how to stay in touch with Barry as well. And like you mentioned, he's a LinkedIn guy, so am I. So find us there, find us on social media in general. We'd love for you to connect with us, for you to tag us. If you've taken any screenshots or just wanted to share what you've learned today, put it out there. We'd love to be able to see it, support it, and reinforce it in any way possible. I think with that, we're going to wrap this conversation up. Barry, you've been an awesome, I wouldn't even say sidekick. You've been an awesome partner in crime in making sure that we got this content out there. And thank you so very much, everybody, for participating. Thank you for being here. Continue to come, continue to build this community. Let's find ways to add value at a time when we most need it, and find ways to continue to be inspired by each other, to learn from one another so that we can get through this even better than when we started, and inspire anybody else, whether it's our students, our coworkers, our direct reports, our supervisors, whoever, our spouses, community, whatever, whoever we inspire, we're going to do so better because we came together for the purpose of learning, for growth, for inspiration. And a final prayer, if I may: we should all be safe. We should all be healthy. We should all be, we should all be moving our lives forward in a way that we see the grace of God or the grace of the universe, whatever you connect with, and we should see the golden pot at the end of this rainbow very soon. Have a wonderful day, all. Thanks again for participating, and have a great day.
Thank you, Naftali. Thank you.